Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to Samuel Adams Returns, the Anti-Federalist. Yes, they did. They absolutely got it right here on Liberty Works Radio Network. And Liberty does work for you if you work for liberty. And this is Tom Navolis, your host. Whew, man, I'll tell you what. Once again, what an exciting week. I wish I could take you through all of the different things that are happening in the local markets, but you really care because there's a lot of you that are in all the different areas. In Maryland, who had let me scoot my chair. Maryland had a shooting, and an officer responded appropriately and took out the perpetrator. Sadly, what we see is that this was a 17-year-old young man. I don't know all the issues. I chose not to follow it or even figure out his name, but I did understand that he's 17 years old. And you have to understand that at this point, Maryland is one of the most restrictive states in the country when it comes to gun control. I, as a resident of Ohio, who have a concealed carry permit that has reciprocity in a number of different states, I cannot even transit through Maryland to a state that would have reciprocity, which on the East Coast there really aren't a lot. Oh, Virginia. But I can't even go anywhere in Maryland unless I get a permit in advance to carry any type of firearm from out of state into the state of Maryland. And the laws are extremely restrictive. So how this young man must have stolen one of his father's guns, his mother's guns, one of his parents, relative or something, I don't know. I haven't followed the detail. But the point very clearly is that if someone intends to be immoral and intends to cause a criminal purpose, a criminal intent, then guess what? They're going to use whatever and get it however for their intended purposes of evil. And that's what it is. And this is what we're going to talk a lot about today, is what does it mean to call things evil? Like Congress and the Omnibus bill that is funding so many different things that it's unimaginable. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But clearly understand that, as you know, and again, I'm preaching to the choir on this program, and hopefully if YouTube doesn't start cutting all of us out that have something useful to say and are willing to speak truth, that you can watch the program on YouTube as well. Yes, for those that are on YouTube, you see my hat. Well, I'm having a bad hair day, and that's okay. We're going to get that fixed as soon as I get to my stylist, if you will, Hey Kath, over in the control room. She takes care of me rather well. But what I have on is a really cool hat, and you can't see it over on the radio, but what it says is "Make Congress Honest Again." And my friend Matt Lynch, who initially was going to run for Congress and now is running for a judicial position, he had a bunch of these hats made up. And I tell you, we don't have an honest Congress. There are some in the what are they calling it now? Is it the Liberty Caucus, or what do they call themselves? That Jim Jordan and all of those guys are. Freedom Caucus. Yeah, thanks, Kath. Freedom Caucus. So the Freedom Caucus, there's some pretty good people in that. But I'll tell you, that McConnell. Oh yeah, I think Levin really spoke to him this week on his program, and with the new book that's out about all of these folks making their millions of dollars and their families being enriched and so on and so forth. Mitch McConnell has no legal right to be where he is. I mean, well, I take that back. I'm sorry. He does have a legal right because he was voted in, but the guy's a criminal. So here we have President Trump negotiating with criminals. And that Paul Ryan, my goodness, he's another one, he's just all part of that. Well, let's get to this and that whole omnibus insanity in one of the latter segments. what I was interested in talking today about was purposes of government, taking you down that whole path of what was going on again with, when we were talking about the Federalists last week and 75, 76, 77, what the president could do when he would take and be able to appoint people, and knowing that the Senate in particular is holding up a lot of those appointments, over 200 appointments, I think is a tragedy. And to the extent that Kathy and I listened to Admiral Lyons, who I had the opportunity in some kind of distant ways of serving under him in his higher levels of command, and it was very, very interesting to hear him speaking down in North Carolina, South Carolina, at the Tea Party meeting that they had down there, their convention in South Carolina, and just laying it out. I mean, this guy lays it out. This guy has been somebody that I have always highly respected, and the reality is that he tells it like it is. I know the I don't know how to even call them politicians anymore. They're like whatever they are. They just don't want to do what's right for the country, and that includes the Republicans. So when I started thinking about the purposes of government, I kind of was going to jump into the Federalist 80 and to the end, and that handles and deals with the judiciary. But I got thinking about it a little bit more, and a couple other things. One is that culturally, as was well said at the pulpit at the church that I attend this past Sunday, is that culturally we are totally in the toilet. Well, he didn't say that in the pulpit, but I'm taking and using a loose interpretation for you, which you already know. We are morally bankrupt, and I think rightfully so, this particular minister brought to bear that in this sermon, which I never thought he had it in him, so I'm going to talk about that in the next segment as well. But he said that there are those that really, truly try to teach the Bible that are under attack. Christianity is under attack. The very foundation of this nation has been and is under attack. So when I started thinking about all the things around the Federalists, and I was thinking about Sunday sermon, and I was thinking about all of the other stuff I'm hearing on the news, I'm thinking about the stuff that's going on in Columbus, Ohio, thinking about the stuff that's happening locally. We have an auditor that's going away, and this, that, and the other thing, and just people in general. It takes me back to what I always say out of Proverbs. There's nothing new under the sun. And the fact that as I continue to study Abraham Kuyper, who I think is just, he's really cool. I think I'm becoming that Kuyperian, if you will, more and more. And as you well know, I don't read a lot of modernists, and I know he wrote in the, 1860s to early 1900s. So yeah, to me that's modern, because I stay, at the foundations and fundamentals, not only of our founders of this country, but also in respect to the reformers and what the reformers write. That goes a little on the tangent, if you will, of education. And in the tangent of education, a lot of times what we see is that even at Christian colleges, instead of digging into that which is already there and taking and understanding that which is already there from the Word of God, as well as from the reformers and such, what we end up doing is that we say, you got to be a PhD. And to me, a PhD is pilot, high, and deep. So for the pilot and high deepers, what they need to do is they have to figure out how to do something different, better, or newer than the other pilot and higher deepers that were before them, or those that are on their pilot, high, and deep board, so that then they continue to pilot high and deep. So it depends on what you're shoveling. you kind of get the idea what I mean by all of that. So, that's why I still don't have that diploma here from the University of Virginia on the wall when it comes to that JD. Because a JD is what? A doctorate in law, and that ain't going to show up because I'm really not interested in a pilot high and deep. So with that, you know what? Let's take you to something that I thought was kind of interesting in the root of some of this stuff. This guy that I came around and understood and read a few years ago is this gentleman by the name of Sergei Glaznev. Sergei Glaznev, he was a minister of foreign economic relations in Boris Yeltsin's first cabinet. The only member of the Russian government to resign in protest of the abolition of parliament and the Constitution in 1993. He has a doctor, there you go, PhD, of economics. Sergei Glaznev looks at post-Soviet policy in Russia from a unique vantage point. He is confident that Russia can recover, but only if the reform policies of the 90s are rejected as the instrument of national catastrophe that they have been. Glaznev's book is a must-read for an understanding of what went wrong and what was wrong from the outset after the Soviet Union broke up. Well, it's an interesting read. It gets into all sorts of social and economic policy. It talks about various definitions of things. He talks very interesting about genocide inside the USSR in the 90s. The policies of self-destruction, economic genocide in particular against broad layers of the population, coup d'etat in September and October of 93, the shelling of the Russian parliament, all of that takeover, and then he goes into all of the differences in the ideology. Well, this guy doesn't even fit anymore in the Putin regime because Putin is a communist and this guy was a true reformer. So I would kind of tell you to take and go find it. I mean, it was cheap. I found it at the dollar store of all places. Can you figure that? So I'm going to hold it up for you. It's called Sergei Glaznev, Genocide, Russia and the New World Order. So that's what this is all about. How does Russia fit into that New World Order? Characterizations of population of Russia as white Negroes is attributed to Trotsky. Wow, wait a minute. You hear that? Wait a minute, here's all these racial slurs and slanders. Oh, that's okay. We expect it from the Russians. And you know, there's a lot of collusion that's going on there. Right, Hillary and Bill? Yeah, you got that. So as we consider what we're going to look at, I wanted just to introduce this book to you. It's kind of interesting. Let me hold it up for those that are looking at it. Very interesting book, and I would recommend you go get it to take a look at what was happening at that period and the reality that Russia is an oligarchy that is totally interested in world domination, either competitively or, let's say, a friendly competition with China. And they have not changed their plans. And the economic situation in Russia has been terrible, only because on the consumer side in particular, but for the oligarchy, it has been amazing. So this is part of what President Trump is dealing with and part of what we have to battle and fight. And then we know that China is looking at the economic hegemony and world domination from that perspective. And guess what? Neither of them have any sense of Christian reality to the extent that we would expect from our founding fathers. So as we think about that and the attacks on the churches and Christianity, I'm going to ask you to come on back in the next segment when Samuel Adams returns, because those anti-federalists, they did. They got it right, even though the Federalists made some good arguments. come on back and we'll continue this conversation shortly. Thanks a lot, and wow, it's a great day. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second segment of Samuel Adams Returns. Those Anti-Federalists, they did get it right here on Liberty Works Radio Network, and this is Tom Navolis, your host. A couple of things I want to talk to you about at the beginning of this segment is, number one, yes, there is that donate button there on the website, and I know that if you're a regular listener, you've been taking that opportunity to participate in this listener-funded network. Also, I want to bring up something about that. You know, I've been working with some other, I'll jump around, as I always do. Because I'm a technologist, and I've been working with some other folks in the technology sector to a degree that we can. And because I'm a former telecom person, I really have a high degree of interest in that. And because I'm the type of guy that way back when in the 80s ran around with those giant honking dial-up printer or dial-up modems, and I'm talking about the ones that went into the central offices that you had to rack and plug everything into and make sure that all the numbers came in, and the routers that were, as big as a refrigerator and all of that type of stuff. So, yeah, I do understand what the inception of the commercial internet is all about. The what happened with DARPANet and all of that. I know people that were parts of that. So what's the point? The point is that as you're donating to Liberty Works Radio Network, we are seeing that every aspect of our thoughts are being attempted to be controlled. You have the Facebooks out there that we now clearly understand, many of us knew anyway that are in the technology realm, that they were data mining and have been data mining, and to the extent now that you have this other group out there that was owned by the Mercer family. What was the name of that? Analytica? Cambridge Analytica. So Cambridge Analytica, boy, I'm glad Kath is here to help. I need that control room stability. But so Cambridge Analytica, they went and they figured out how to grab stuff off of Facebook and other places. I mean, look, they've been around for a good number of years. Go check out their webpage, and you will see that they've been doing analytics for political and business for many, many years. So, do you think that Trump, as a business guy that was probably using stuff for his businesses, didn't already know about them, but then maybe with them. Anyway, I can't figure out all of his thinking. I don't know it. I don't know the man other than what I know about him through close friends. Now, when you take all of that into hand and you start considering that what we have and what I've always called out is all of these young liberal whacked out, what are they? Oh, capitalist. Even Ben and Jerry, they're profound communist. They say, we're socialist, but Ben and Jerry ice cream, they're communists. They support all of the leftist communist causes. But boy, they love capitalism. Don't they? Yeah. Just like Zuckerberg, just like Google, just like Bezos at Amazon, and on and on and on it goes. They like capitalism when it benefits them for their pocketbooks. But other than that, their ideologies are absolutely way off to the left. So what we need to consider, especially with Liberty Works Radio Network, as well as some other projects that I'm looking into, is that you need to support the alternative voice. You need to help us that are technicians and former executives in the telecom industry and that to develop those alternative means of what? Where we can go. Do we really want a Facebook? Maybe not Facebook, but how about something that is meaningful by which we can communicate and make sure that our message gets out there? Will we open it up to the general public and figure out who, what? I don't know. We'll have, is that free speech? So many questions that have to be looked at and resolved. But the point is that with YouTube now shutting down firearms instruction, the way to look at, hey, how do you clean your rifle? Hey, how do you take and disassemble that piece of equipment you have so you can highly maintain it to make sure that it stays functional when you need it to be functional? And, well, you know what? Maybe what we do is we put up on the website where all of the good training centers are, where all the good gun shops are. Maybe we start working that and put those up on the blog so that you know where to go get trained. And what people can do is put into a little USB a whole bunch of videos that, you know, for $5, $7, $10, whatever, you can pick up a USB, take it home, play it, train, do all the things that you need to do so that you can keep yourself, not only keep your equipment functioning properly, but that you may be able to go through and do some additional tactical training. I know there's some really great guys out there, you know, former SEALs, former operators, you know, anything from Delta all the way through all the other great guys in, you know, airborne, so on and so forth, that are out there doing training. And they have their different organizations, companies, and training videos. I suggest maybe get away from old UB2B, sign up for their freebies, and then if it makes sense, take in, you know what, liberty costs. That's something I bring out in my seminars, and that's something that I bring out in the book. If you really want to maintain your liberty, you got to put something into it. So that means you got to push that donate button there at Liberty Works Radio Network. That means you need to go to Samuel Adams Center for Political Science and push that donate button. So it's sacps.org, and push that donate button so that we can train up the next generation of policymakers in business so we can get rid of the Bezo Bonos, boneheads, and, you know, Zuckerberg, and did I say that? Yeah, I mean Zuckerberg, and that, you know, that's what, it's terrible when a jet engine sucks a bird. So a Zuckerberg. Yeah, okay. We can have a little fun with that, can't we? I don't know. Anyway, so the thing is that we have to raise up that next generation, because what we have is insufficient numbers of constitutionally moral and virtuous individuals running for office. All right? So that's what I'm about. That's what SACPS is about. That's what this program is about with Samuel Adams, because Samuel Adams was a moral and virtuous man. He wasn't the drunk that all of those other programs and everything else put out there. He was someone that caused the revolution in the mind first, so that you understood the principles, the truths, those Christian principles and truths by which you can act, and that then it becomes good policy. Here's a secret. I'm going to tell you guys a real secret. So the secret of Samuel Adams and the secret of all of what happened in the American Revolution kind of comes right out of the pulpits back in the day. All right? And if you read the ministers and you read those messages during that period of time, it's just amazing is that, once again, as I will always tell you, is that your liberty, first and foremost, comes from a relationship with the living Christ, okay? And that you have to understand your position in humanity, which is that you, me, and everybody else are a slave to sin and our own wants, desires, and everything else, until we come into that absolute recognition of who Jesus Christ is and what he came for and what he did. So that's real liberty. Jesus says, I came to set you free. Pretty cool. I think so. But with that, then, is what Samuel Adams understood, is that if you go and look at God's modeling, and you have to remember that Jesus followed the law in complete and totality, because he was there and participating in giving the law. And that law goes all the way back into the cultural and political laws of what was in the Old Testament. I have been spending an inordinate amount, well, never an inordinate amount, I have been spending a good amount of time, once again, in my quiet time, not only going through what's in the New Testament, but also going through all the way back into Exodus in particular. And in there, we see that God is giving the cultural, not just spiritual law, but the cultural and political law to Moses and to the people for what? Their well-being. Geez, so that they could conquer their enemies. Oh yeah. Are there enemies? Yes, there are. Are there enemies of God? Absolutely. Anyone that is not in a relationship with God, hate to tell you, but the truth and the fact is, those people are enemies of God. Whoa. Excuse me. He has some pretty interesting consequences for that. Although, what he does have also, and he has done since the fall of Adam and Eve, is what is called in the world that a lot of folks don't understand is called common grace. So he keeps the world going because of his greater purposes for the world. And what he really wants is that, those that would be called by his name hear his word and come to him. So with that, then it means you got to do something with it. Yep, you have to do something with it. That's what Sam Adams figured out. That's what he learned when he was a young man. That's what he learned from his Puritan heritage and background, which means he studied the reformers. And when we look at what was happening during that Reformation period of time, guess what? They were standing up against not only those things that were the spiritual evils, but those things that affected every human being from a geopolitical, cultural perspective. Yep, that's what it was all about. And that is everything that Jesus was affecting. It was interesting as I was going through some of the New Testament types readings, and Jesus, when he was doing a lot of preaching, just go to the Gospel of John. I think I mentioned that a little bit last week. When you go to that Gospel of John, go read through there as you're reading. Just don't go blasting through. Just think about when Jesus comes into Jerusalem, and even when he's in, say, Caesarea, Capernaum, and a few of the other places, when he's teaching the Jews, when he's teaching in a temple or a synagogue, wherein there is he teaching, and to whom is he speaking? The majority of the time, he's teaching in the core areas of judgment, learning, and even the treasury. And not only that, he is talking with not only the religious leaders, more so, he is even talking with the political leaders. So Sam Adams, understood all of that the liberty and gospel truth in Jesus Christ and by him reaches and is what I always call the extensibility of the gospel, reaches across everything in life, including how we govern and are governed. I guess that's a little bit on that Kuyperian ideology, because Kuyper, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, in his lectures down there in at the university here in the United States, in his lectures, that's one of the things he kind of talked about. So I got a lot of that just from reading Scripture itself, but it's interesting when you get things kind of confirmed by somebody smarter than you, and I'll tell you, Abraham Kuyper is one of those modern writers that I put right at the top of my list and that I have a great regard for. So with that, okay, last segment, we took you through genocide, what was happening with Russia and New World Order. This segment, I pretty much took the time to talk about Samuel Adams, a little bit about culture, a little bit about what it means to donate, what it means to build those alternative means of communication away from the Facebook, Googles, Twitters, Ditters, and everything else, and that we need to be using our blogs and more face-to-face communication, how to help out businesses that are doing those types of things that you're interested in, and keeping your mechanical items up and running properly, as well as you. So those are a lot of the things that Sam Adams did and talked about as he was in charge of safety in Boston and Massachusetts. So come on back in the next segment as we wrap up a lot here, as Samuel Adams will return, because those anti-federalists, they got it right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to Samuel Adams Returns. Those anti-federalists got it right here on Liberty Works Radio Network, and this is Tom Novolis, your host. Lots of stuff. Look, I didn't even get into all of the other political insanities. One of the things that I continue to ask is that you continue to support President Trump. The Omnibus bill, in my opinion, is flat out collusion between the Republicans and the Democrats, and they want to continue their evil insanities at the detriment of the Republic. So the Mitch McConnells, the Paul Ryans, all of them, all right, except for the Freedom Caucus, I'll tell you, they have no use for you. They are swamp monsters. But you in Maryland know that. You know, it's interesting because my sister lives in Maryland, and I was talking with her, and we were talking about a house that she's trying to sell, and that because it was a century farm home that they added on to, they have a hard time selling the home because of the very nice exclusive swamp homes, you know, up the street and around the corner. I mean, they have a nice 20-acre parcel, and you know what? So some of you down there in the Maryland market, if you're interested in 20 acres and a lot of good stuff that you can, you know, do on it, and you know, pretty decent house and all of that, hey, send me an email and I'll put you in contact with my sister. So I'm putting a plug in for my sister to help her sell her house. Anyway, you know, I can do that. It's my program. Thank you very much. So, again, the omnibus bill is evil. We have too much evil going on in Congress. We have way too much happening in all of the bureaucracies because we have not gotten rid of the communists that are there left over from the Obama nation, and so on and so forth. So with that, you know what? I have a series of books that I sure would like to comment on. You know, I had someone tell me at the church that we attend that someone that we really had a lot of high honor for was way out there. Way out there. That was, let's see, Dr. Kennedy, D. James Kennedy. He was way out there. And I went, way out there? Are you kidding me? You got to be joking. But anyway, I guess some people think people are way, well, a lot of people think I'm way out there. So there you go. So here's a whole series of books that Dr. Kennedy helped promote that are synopsis from the full books of the various authors. So one of the ones that I think is very pertinent and is timeless. No different. It's timeless. I'm going to hold the cover up for those that can see, but this is part of the American Destiny series. And the first one is called America Adrift by Jim Nelson Black. And I want you to take a look, if you can, at the picture right here and the protesters and the things that were going on at that time. So where'd we go off course? What happened in America? How did it happen? You know what? Going back to Proverbs, there's nothing new under the sun. So anyway, Jim Nelson Black, he's another pile high and deep guy, but you know, he's pretty decent here, is an author and researcher based in Washington, D.C. He is way back in the swamp. He is author and co-author of more than 30 books, including the highly acclaimed When Nations Die and Character and Destiny with D. James Kennedy. He is a former executive director of the Wilberforce Forum, a public policy think tank headed by Charles Colson, and has taught at the university level. So this one's good. I mean, it's short. There's only, in here is a quick 72 pages. So, wow, nothing new. What do we learn? All we do is repeat history. All sorts of that. Lost faith in America, so on and so forth. Why are we under attack? Interesting. Another one, America's Heritage. I brought this up. Gary DeMar happens to be one of my favorite writers in other realms as well, and biblical as well as political. But he's the president of American Vision, editor of Biblical Worldview magazine, and is author of 20 books. Holy smokes, man, I got a lot of catching up to do. I only got 2 books, and I'm going to talk about the number 2 book here shortly. But again, this is only a short 80-some pager, and Gary does a great job in talking about this and what is it to, oh my goodness, look at this, there it is. He's got John Calvin in here, one of interesting reformers. So, being I guess now I'm a Kuyperian, which is a strong Calvinist. Geez, I guess that's what I are. Here's another one, America Restored by John Barber. And he actually did this right after 9/11. And John Barber has served as an itinerant evangelist, church planter, host of nationally syndicated radio programs, a writer for Dr. Bill Bright. He holds degrees, multiple degrees, from Westminster Theological Seminary and Yale Divinity School. John is ordained in the Presbyterian Church in America. Interesting stuff. He wrote, this is really good. How do you restore America? So those are kind of like the 3 in a series that I highly recommend. They're old. These things were put out, I think this last one, when did we get this? I don't know. I got to look at it. This last one, America Restored, it came out, oh my goodness gracious, it was like first copy written in 1960. Oh, that was the New American Standard. Oh, I don't know. 2002. So, these go back a day or two. 2002. Let's see. Can I do the math? That's 16 years ago. Wow. So here's one for you that goes back even further than that. And then we're going to talk about one that just came out. But the one that goes further back that really ties it all together. When I first made a real conscious understanding of that relational perspective of living in a relationship with Jesus Christ, one of the first authors I devoured his writings on were Francis Schaeffer. So I still think that Dr. Francis Schaeffer hits it out of the park in every way that he spoke of and he wrote of. So his How Should We Then Live? The Rise and Decline of Western Thought and Culture is once again timeless. Timeless, timeless, timeless. It was copywritten in 1976. Can you imagine that? 1976. Ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that, typical, I go through this and I see where everything I do is underline and write in my books. It is clear that we have to continue to understand our foundational truths so that we can communicate it to our posterity. That's what Samuel Adams said, and that's what he intended. He was all about ensuring that the children were inculcated, that means had it pounded into them, what is the spiritual, moral, virtuous reality of biblical truth, so that they could self-govern and then be able to govern well within their communities, their businesses, their families, and then within their generalized society. So it's very, very interesting that we have destroyed that in the educational system with all the feel-good, touchy-feel, and all of that other good stuff. Now, you've heard me talk about that many, many times before, and quite frankly, once again, I have to say that the head minister at the church that we attend did a really fantastic job of, it was funny, he actually used the word inculcate in referring to education, and he actually talked about Chisholm, who was out to destroy education and children and family and so on. So I was like, whoa, very impressed. Kathy and I kind of like looked at one another and went, where do you get that from? So you have to understand that there may be things with some ministers that are out there that they get it, but for whatever reasons, they don't bring it into the full context, which they could, as did the ministers during the foundation of the American Revolution. So, as we continue, and how much time do we have left, Kath? We got about 4 minutes left is what she's given me on the big happy face there. And within that 4 minutes, this is where I want to talk about, we're going to start up sometime this summer, the Tale of Two Constitutional, you got me tongue-tied here. The Tale of Two Constitution seminars. And in that, those alone, we are bringing out the book, which is now up on Amazon, as well as it is on my preferred publisher, is The Book Patch. And I will put those links, or you have those links here in the promos, and they will be in the bottom of the YouTube section, so you can find those links to the book. And you know what? We're getting ready to get that out there and get the seminars going again, so that people have that synopsis of everything that we're talking about from covenant to the present Constitution. In the book, which we're going to totally feature in April, and I will put it up next or replace it with what we have up there, and Not All Conservatives Are Constitutionalists, takes us through what many churches no longer even teach about, is covenant. And from covenant, we understand where is it from a relational form of governance. So that goes back to what Moses was doing and what God was doing with the people of Israel, and his intentions have always been in good government, is that it's a covenant. And what does that mean? How do we go through that? We'll talk about that in different segments and blurbs, and maybe at the end of each and every program. But what I want you to understand is that in what we have going on, you can go to, for those that are listening, you can actually go to SamuelAdamsReturns.com, and you'll see there where it has on the books and videos. You can click on that picture even, and that'll then take you to books and videos. And the second book in there is the one on covenant to the present Constitution. You click on that one, and that will take you to the page that describes what the book is about. And guess what? If you scroll down, at the top you can buy the book, or you can buy the ebook right there from the book patch, or you scroll down through and read what the book is about. And at the bottom in blue letters is a link that will take you to a PDF file that is mine, the author's note, what I say about the book, kind of gives you that other introduction, and then the introduction itself of the book. So you can read those two chapters for free right there at SamuelAdamsReturns.com. And then right after that blue link, there's another one with the picture of the book right there, where you can click on that and you can buy it at the book patch. Yeah, you can do that too. And again, it is in soft copy or it's in ebook. So your choice, but I appreciate if you take a look at that. And as we promote that, we will be more than delighted to come out and do the seminar for you to go with it, because it's a workbook. You can actually take some notes in the printed version, and it's a big book. It's 8.5 by 11 and about 304 pages, so there's a lot of stuff in there. And we'll talk more about that when Samuel Adams returns, because why? Because those anti-federalists, they absolutely got it right here on Liberty Works Radio Network, where liberty does work for you if you get your butts out of your seats and your feet on the streets.